and I'm very happy to have all of you here. And thank you for honoring our invitation. So, a brief background about this program, right? So, the preempting resilience for our accelerated renewable energy scaling is to see how we can move the conversation from just having renewable energy development on the off-grid space to actually having it productive for us on the national grid. So the African Climate Foundation and next year we sat together and we said, how do we do this? If we don't have the required skills to do that, we have to get the necessary people in the room and discuss how we can do these things, how we can find a way to ensure that renewable energy is in our national grid. We can use it not just for like our own personal use, but it can actually generate income for us nationally. So the objectives of this program is just for starters to understand how variable renewable energy works alongside with distributed energy resources. We want to see how we can enhance grid resilience. So the way our national grid keeps collapsing, I don't think it speaks well for the largest economy in Africa, right? We want to see best practices on how we can approach renewable energy development on the national grid. We also want to come up with innovative solutions. So this is where we would ask you, what do you think for your state, for instance? What do you think we can do? What are the recommendations you have? What do you think, what approach, especially with the state electricity market that is now giving states the ability to generate their own electricity? So what are the necessary steps we need to take? So I don't want to give too much. I don't want to talk too much on this program because that's the job of the facilitators, right? So at this point in time, I would like to introduce Annie Nkemjika, the senior consultant and my president on this project, to give an opening remark. Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause for her.
Distinguished guests, facilitators, panelists, and moderators, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and I welcome you all to this event. I would like to start by telling you a story. Once upon a time in 2016, Nigeria signed power purchase agreements with 14 independent power producers. That contract was worth $2.5 billion. It was meant to add exactly 1,125 megawatt solar capacity to the national grid. This seemed like a landmark deal, a step towards reducing our reliance on fossil fuel and tapping into our abundant solar resources. It felt like a new dawn for our energy sector, one where renewables could play a pivotal role. But here we are, almost a decade after. Those projects are still in limbo. The excitement and the plans, the solar projects are still unrealized. What was the reason? Some people said the PPAs were not well negotiated. Others said that the investors and the federal government could not agree on the tariff. But whatever the case may be, the point remains that none of the projects saw the light of the day. This is a reflection of the broader challenges we face when setting up large-scale renewables in Nigeria. And this brings us to the greater challenge we have today. The energy landscape is consistently changing, and capacity building is absolutely critical for us to unlock Nigeria's renewable energy sector. And this is why we are here today. And with the emergence of state electricity market, states in Nigeria can now set up their own energy market and take hold of their energy sector totally. There is a dire need for capacity building, and that is why we are here. Over the next 2 days, we will discuss best practices that will help us avoid the mistakes of the past. And we will learn to make renewable energy transactions scalable and sustainable, particularly when it comes to solar and wind. We will explore how to integrate variable renewable energy, VREs, into our national and state level grids. and we will look at ways to creating financial models that can work for Nigeria. Whether you're a part of a government agency, a private company, a development institution, or an academic organization, the capacity you build here today will directly impact you when you go back to your office, your homes, your community, or your state. Our goal over the next 2 days is to learn to build a resilient energy future, one that is not just green, but reliable and economically viable. The solutions we design must stand the test of time and be flexible enough to adapt to a rapidly changing world. And that's why it's so important to have a room full of experts with different backgrounds that are ready to bring something to the table. And together we can unlock the potential that the sector has to offer. I would like to take this moment to thank Nextia Power for facilitating this training, and of course, the Africa Climate Foundation for financing this initiative. Without their support, none of this would be possible. I am genuinely excited about the conversations, insights, and collaborations that will emerge from these 2 days. I encourage you all to take full advantage of this opportunity, not just to learn, but to connect, build lasting relationships and partnerships. The challenges in the Nigerian energy sector, they are daunting, but I'm confident we can turn these challenges into opportunities with the right skills and expertise. Once again, thank you all for being here. Your participation is a sign of commitment to Nigeria's energy future. I look forward to what we will accomplish together in the next few days. I am pleased to officially declare this workshop on preempting resilience for renewable energy scaling in Nigeria open. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my president, for that interesting opening remarks. So at this point in time, the basics of wind energy, the beginning of the conversation, and this is a new conversation that's happening in Nigeria. And I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but we have the Nigerian Wind Energy Council now in Nigeria. The official launch was in October this year, and no other person is going to anchor this part of the program. So I'm introducing Mr. Temitope Omowumi, the council coordinator for the Nigerian Wind Energy Council. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I bring greetings from the Nigerian Wind Energy Council, and I am very excited about this particular 2-day workshop regarding how to scale VRE on the grid. It's a conversation that has been left for too long, and especially in the context of wind and even solar. And I think this is the right time to discuss this. My presentation this morning is around wind. It's about just the basics of wind. I will speak briefly about the Nigerian Wind Energy Council, what we are doing in terms of capacity building and information dissemination regarding wind, and in general advocacy. So as part of our commitment to advancing the cause of wind, especially large-scale wind application in the country, is why we have also decided to participate in this workshop and to just educate people more about wind energy. I'll be talking about the basics, not something. I try to make the presentation approachable for people who are not wind specialists, and in Nigeria there are really no wind specialists until we get wind projects up and running. If I may have my presentation. Okay, pending the time the presentation will come up, let me just start by asking a little question about wind. If I were to ask us what was the application of wind energy, what will you guess it was? Power. Someone says power. Well, that's not quite correct from wind turbine. Wind turbine is a bit generic, depending on what what is the wind turbine is producing. But at least for my research and the little knowledge I have on wind, it's been more or less since the dawn of time when humans took to the sea to start sailing. The wind sails is guided by the wind, and the wind determines the sailor direction and how they sail, and also the turbulence at sea and all that. So that's some of the first application of wind energy and how wind has been adapted. Of course, we are now here now to the age where this same wind energy, which is a God-given natural resource, is now powering, I think, to date, Europe is powered up to 20%. The energy mix is 20% wind, and of course, in our context, Africa has also made significant advances. Nigeria and West Africa, we are gradually getting there. Okay, so to the presentation. I think, can everybody see it already? Okay, yeah. So I will speak briefly about the session objectives. The objectives of this session on the fundamentals of wind energy and wind resource assessment is just to introduce us to wind energy fundamentals, understand wind energy resources, and explore methods for measuring and analyzing them. A little bit about the Nigerian Wind Energy Council. Like the Busayo, the MC said, the council was formed as a result of identifying the gap and the gap for independent, not-for-profit entity to advance the cause of wind, and also the fact that the topic of wind has not picked up compared to solar in Nigeria. The vision of the council is to amplify the bridging of access gap in Nigeria using wind energy technology. We are, like I say, it's a not-for-profit, and it's non-governmental as well, and non-political. We have affiliations with the Global Wind Energy Council, and we are also supported by a couple of other partners. And we have, coincidentally, some of our funders. One of our main funders is the African Climate Foundation as well. So the thematic areas of activity of the council, like I said, include communication and advocacy, technology, data and market intelligence for wind, then capacity building and certification, which is something I'm here to do today, and as well as identifying the relevant partnerships and collaborations to push the topic. I'll just speak briefly before I delve into the basics of wind. Why wind? Why are we talking about it now? Why is it relevant to the future we are looking at and scaling? Wind has, in most places, especially with recent advancements in technology, in turbine technology, untapped potential. The conversation used to be that you must have a particular cutting wind speed in the past, but now with new advancement, a lot of places, especially in Africa, even in Nigeria, here from findings and some of the new insights we have shows that there is significant potential. It's also a competitively priced RE resource, renewable energy resource. It also has complementarity with solar and even any other technology. You can add battery energy storage to it as well. Minimal disruption to land use and that. I just want to give some comparatives to see why we need to start talking about wind in Nigeria and why people need to know more about the technology. I recently saw on social media that it was very funny and the person was serious. He said the purpose of the wind turbine is to stop global warming, but he thought of it literally, just that the fan will cool everywhere. It was very strange to me. So I found out that indeed we need to have this kind of sessions. So, yeah, and he was saying it with a straight face, and I was like, how could you imagine that the purpose of the turbines are just to blow wind and cool all of us? But that's what it has as a understanding, and that's why we need to educate ourselves more on this. So that's why we are talking about it. That's my job. I'm a wind evangelist. To blow you away, or to blow you all away. With recent findings, there is significant potential in Nigeria. There are the 10% of the windiest area in Nigeria, for instance, has wind speeds averaging around 6.7 meters per second, especially when you go above 75 meter height. And that shows that if we put that into possible average energy production, annual energy production, it's significant, and we need to tap into that potential. So I have a graphics here that shows the gap and the opportunity and potential we have in wind energy in Nigeria, and even as a sub-region in West Africa. The country of Kenya in East Africa has installed capacity for wind of around 435 megawatts, and the entire West Africa sub-region of ECOWAS has only 296 megawatts, which shows that there is significant untapped potential. In Nigeria, the potential we have in wind is the main wind farm in Katsina State, which is just a 10 megawatt plant. What are the possible potentials from basic and high-level analysis? Nigeria could generate 1,000 gigawatts from wind. You all know what we have as the installed capacity for the country, both from thermal and hydro currently. And if just the potential alone from wind, especially grid scale wind, can give us 1,000 gigawatts. That could significantly change the conversation, around energy access, grid stability, and these likes. Even in West Africa, we could get close to 9,000 plus gigawatts. And like I said, from research, there is only 2 countries that have even tried to exploit, despite the vast coastal line that we have in West Africa. There is no offshore applications yet. We hope to get there. We have a significant plant in Senegal, and of course the 10 megawatt plant in Katsina. I will show more down the presentation. Wind projects in Nigeria, we have the Katsina wind farm, like I said, is a 10 megawatt plant, and if it was operational and functioning, it could be, abating around 500 tons of CO2 per annum. Aside from energy access, it also contributes to, net zero and reduce them in Nigeria. So the other project, which is a reference project in West Africa, is the Park Eolene Taiba in Ndiaye in Senegal. Is a 158 megawatt grid scale, utility scale wind project, and it's currently operating, and it's generating around 15% of Senegal's power need. This is just to put in context. A single wind farm in Kenya, which is the largest wind farm in Africa, the Lake Turkana wind farm, produces, just a single wind farm in Kenya produces what the entire West Africa is producing. And of course, the Lake Turkana project is a flagship and reference project that everybody is proud of in Africa. So now to the part of education. I'm not, like I say, I'm not a wind specialist myself. I'm still learning, but I lead the topic, and I wanted to share some of the fundamentals and to, change the perspective, and also not make people think that turbine is cooling us rather than it's actually generating energy that can power what will cool us. So wind. What do you have as understanding of wind? Who can speak to that? What is wind itself? If you are to define wind, how do you define wind? Here in motion. That's a very good one. That's a way to simplify it, and you are very correct. Wind occurs due to movement of displacement of air from area of cooler area, hotter area to cooler area, and that is what generates wind. And of course, our global source as a universe, or let me say as a solar system, is still the sun. So still the sun is still what produces wind, because it is from the sun that we get the heating that then displaces air that creates wind. So that is like going back to physics, or I don't know what discipline covers that. So, but that is the essence of how wind is generated. So it's essentially, like it says, the movement of air from high to low, a low area of high pressure to low pressure. And, the greater the difference in pressure, which is like a potential difference, the faster the wind. So that is, so if you have places with high wind potential, it just means that they are situated naturally or seasonally in places where there is this high displacement of air pressure and whatnot. Then the next thing then we then talk about is what is the wind energy? Because when you define wind, then how do you annex or harvest wind energy? So wind energy essentially is the conversion of electrical power, using windmills, wind turbines, or any other mechanical devices that can use the physical characteristics of wind to turn a generator and produce electricity, essentially. So the electricity that is then produced from the turbine, which is basically wind turbines are the main apparatus to convert wind energy. So a little bit of history, like I said, after people started sailing, some of the initial application again for use of wind energy were windmills. I know if you've seen the photos of Netherlands, you will see a lot of windmills in rural area. So these are mostly agrarian applications for pumping water, for milling, and the rest. So this has been in practice since 3,000 years, even far back. I have dates as far as 1,200 BC. But of course, the first application to use wind to generate electricity started in the 19th century. So that's just a bit of historical background. The next thing that we then talk about, I've talked about wind, I've talked about wind energy, and I think the next thing is wind turbine. So this session is just to explain some of these basics to us, and if you have questions, so do you have the understanding of how each of these things work, what is their role, what do they play in the system. So a wind turbine, like we say, is a device that can then convert the kinetic energy of wind into electricity. A group of turbine, like maybe in Katsina or Lake Turkana, is called wind farm. So if you have a single wind turbine that is powering maybe this building or this street, it's not a wind farm, it's just a wind turbine. So these are some of the differences. But when you have a aggregation or a collection of wind turbine in an area, maybe probably linked together to generate electricity cumulatively, then that becomes a wind farm. So that's another definition. And wind applications can be built onshore, which is meaning it's on land, and it can also be built offshore on the marine scenario in the oceans and on the coast. Typically, wind turbines are manufactured in a wide range of shapes and sizes. I will talk more about different size, different type of blade configurations. And you can see because it's mechanical and modular, you can size them just like solar. Anybody that knows about solar, they will come and do load assessment of your premise. Then they will tell you need this inverter, you need this battery size. You can also size. In fact, when you do the full measurements and all the necessary assessments we are going to talk about, even the blade material are also the turbine material are also designed to specification because they are made of composite materials. So you want something that will withstand maybe specific environmental characteristics of the area, salinity, wind shear, and the rest. So everything, the turbine is built to specification, at least if you want to achieve good production and a long lifestyle cycle for them. In terms of scalability, there are turbines that produce in kilowatts, and there are some that produce. If you look at the visualization that we are looking at, there is offshore application now where singular turbines are producing around 15 megawatts. You can't imagine that if a single turbine is producing 15 megawatts, and you also have some that just produce in the kilowatts, 100 kilowatts and whatnot. Okay, so I also have these slides to further explain when you look at that tower, what are you seeing? So essentially, the tower is made up of three main. The turbine is made up of three main components, which is a rotor. The rotor comprises of the orb, which is the central component that holds the blade. So the rotor contains the blades and the orb. The blades are what actually captures the energy, the pitch, depending on the wind direction and wind speed, and start rotate. So when you see a wind turbine, you are looking at the blade, and that component is called rotor. It contains the blade and the orb. The blade captures the kinetic energy of the wind, and the orb is the central component that contains the blade and transfers the kinetic energy to the other components of the wind of the turbine. So the second component, which is what is installed on the tower, is called the nacelle, and the nacelle is very important. Is the brain, as it were, of the wind turbine. So it contains the gearing, the gearbox, the generator, all the mechanical component that does the conversion. I will still speak more a bit about it. And the other component of the turbine is then the wind tower, which is what provides the support. So it's just the tower is just the vertical component that rests on the foundation and supports the rotor and the nacelle to the height where it produces electricity. So that is a rundown of the structure of a wind turbine. This is just speaking more about the rotor, especially the blade. So there are different configurations, as you can see. You can have the most common type of rotor is the three-bladed ones that that has 3 blades. But there are also applications like the wind turbines in Katsina are 2-blade, while there are also singular blade. And you can also even have 4 blades, but they are not as efficient. So why most of it has gravitated to odd number 3-blade is because of the efficiency. Going by mechanics and physics, the best configuration is to use an odd number of blades, and I think the optimal one from finding is the 3-blade. So that is just speaking to blade configuration. What you are looking at currently is a kind of cross-section of a nacelle, and how all of it works together to produce electricity from the wind. So if you look at the graphics you are looking at, you will see it's labeled, and a very key component that is always on each turbine is actually a measuring device which assess the direction and wind speed. And so we are talking about a wind gauge and a wind vane and an anemometer. So that is very critical. The function of that is to, estimate the wind speed, get the direction, and also rotate the turbine to the best position to receive the wind. So the measuring device keeps scanning and getting data, and this data then guides the turbine to operate at the maximum and optimal direction. So when the wind turbine is facing the right direction, then you have the blade, like we have talked, starts rotating against the wind, creates a resistance, and that resistance generates rotation. And then that is then transferred into the gearing system, at least if it's a gear-based turbine system. The reason why there is need for gears is that gears are multiplier components in engines. If I remember my physics very well, you have a small gear, turn a bigger one, and then the output becomes magnified. And so that is the reason why we have gearing. The typical, if you see, we are looking at around 7 to 12 rev per minute. It's not significant to turn any generator to produce electricity, but then when that gearing system in the turbine then works together with what is being produced by the rotor, then it multiplies that in the second gear. So there are two, high speed and low speed. So the first one that connects to the rotor is a low speed gear, while the other one is a high speed gear. So once that transfer happens, then the high speed gear is what is connected to the generator that then converts the rotation into electricity. So that is how it functions. And that generator then passes it also down to a transformer, but the scope of this this session does not go beyond the wind turbine. So then from the transformer, it still either steps it up and then goes into transmission. Although there are also some applications that does not have gears, they call them direct drive turbines. That means the rotor is connected directly to the generator. It's a different technology that just exclude gears. And this component is a unique characteristics of wind power, which means every now and then this assembly or this setup also needs to be maintained, because it's an engine. You service our cars, so probably you go to a wind farm and you see one of the tower is guyed and placed and opened up. They might just be doing the scheduled maintenance on that particular nacelle to make it more efficient, or to maybe it develops a fault or replace parts in it. So, and that is also, if you go, I'm sure probably there will be other speakers that speaks about the economics of how you do, least costs of electricity in wind. That part of maintenance cost is also part of what you are going to put into your consideration before you get your final LCOE for your project. So what are the other considerations aside from how a turbine works? I've explained how the turbine works. You can also, please go back to let us look at the graphics on the internals of a generator. You can take a look at it. Please go back one step. One, I think it's one. Oh, two. Yes, exactly. So you can look at this. This is the cross section of a wind nacelle, and you will see all the components and each of their functions as I've explained it. So you will see the tower, you will see the rotor, you see the nacelle, you see the generator, you see all the other components, and you can research or learn more about all of this. So at least who else still believes that the fan is just to cool us now? At least I've been able to convince you a bit that it's not a fan, it's a rotor. Yes. So some of other consideration. wind speeds are influenced by ground surface. So as part of the consideration, the smoothness of the ground, that's why you will see that, especially for onshore application, you will find your wind farm in a flat area. You don't want to put it in forest. You don't want to build it in built-up area. So that's also very important. So once there is obstacle, you are actually reducing what is possible to generate. These are just restating. Of course, hair density is also very important. And also that means the climatic characteristics of where you want to put your turbine or wind farm is also very important. Yes, so that's been a little overview of wind energy technology basics. It's basic. You can't learn everything here, but this is just to give us an overview of how it functions. I know even till today, if you speak to people about solar PV, they still don't know how it functions end to end. You even see installers who does not know, and they are claiming they are solar installers because they do not understand the basics and what each component does, why your battery storage should be this size, why you should use this kind of inverter. So it's always good to have this basic overview of what each of the component does. And you can also, of course, combine wind with other technologies. It can be grid tied with other generating sources, and you find a balance. The next thing we want to discuss is then the wind resource itself. We defined wind when we started as here in motion, and so we want to look at some of the characteristics of this wind that makes it that gives different potential, different deliverables, different production units and characteristics for wind energy projects. So the three most critical thing, which is also what you will see in maybe when we want to do a long-term assessment for a site, or we are trying to evaluate the possible potential. The wind speed is the most critical to wind energy production. I think that is just as you see, and as you can see, you can start producing electricity from between 4 meters per second up to 25 meters per second, after which, it becomes dangerous for the turbine to keep operating. Otherwise, it's going to get damaged. Then the direction. So it's also important, like we said, there are measuring devices on large turbines to also optimize direction. But even when you are planning a site, you want a place where the wind direction is not turbulent or sporadic. It has a pattern, so that you know that this will be the belt where all the turbines will line up, and it can produce optimally. So wind direction is important, and these are the two most critical things. And of course, like I said, air density, because we are still dealing with air, so heavier. So if you go higher in places where the air is too light, then you won't get enough production. You need denser air to turn the turbine. So these are the key, resource characteristics for here for wind, and this graphics here just shows the wind classes that we have in different parts of Africa. As you can see, we have class 1 to 7, and class 7 are the very, very sweet spots. If you have anywhere that has from class 4 to 7, those are good sites for large scale grid-tied, grid utility scale projects. So how do we measure these wind characteristics of wind speed and wind direction and air density? We have two applications. You can do the most popular one, and before we have advancement in remote sensing, is in situ. So you mount a tower. You can see this snapshot that I took out of this, that I put here as copper anemometers, sonic anemometers, and wind vane, is actually all mounted on a singular tower with different arms. So the copper anemometer is on a tower. The sonic anemometer is on another tower, and then you have the wind vane. So anemometer measures speed, the wind speed, and while the wind vane, I'm sure some of us who did integrated science or introtech, we did use some of these in elementary school, and you have it in your lab or around your school somewhere. So it's still the same technology, very basic. Especially for the direction, it has a potentiometer that, then guides and tells the turbine where the direction and the bearing and all those complex things. So these are the two main things for on-site measurement, and those are so at least you can live here and say you know about anemometer now and wind vane and what it does. And even when you build your turbine, each turbine must have this measuring device on them to operate optimally, because you might need to shut it off. Some shut off automatically, some self-adjust. Your pitch of your blade as well also is dependent on these measurements. Then, of course, you can also do remote sensing, especially for offshore application. The way to measure the wind characteristic offshore is to use remote sensing applications like LiDAR, like radar, and others. You can also use satellites to measure the wind speed. Some complex applications, but the experts know how they do their thing. So in places where it's too remote or not cost efficient to go and physically put physical measuring devices, remote sensing are what you use to also get these characteristics, and you will even get 3D and all the other kind of profile from this. So when you measure, the next thing you want to do is then to analyze and model and get, okay, what does this mean for me? So as you can see, some of the things that you can use to analyze and present your data include wind atlases. The wind atlases are like a comprehensive collection of these measurements over time at different heights. So, and some of them, like the Global Wind Atlas that you are seeing here, is free and open source. You can just go to the URL and set your parameters that you are interested in, and you'll be able to get the profile of the wind speed, the power intensity, wind rose, which is the direction, average annual production, and wind speed of the area. And so these are some of the way you analyze. And on this particular platform, it uses mesoscale data, which means what you get here is a guide to home in on potential areas. And then from here, you can then do what we call long-term assessments. This is not enough to give you the full data, but it guides, because it uses higher resolution data at kilometers rather than meter. So, but this is a global benchmark by one of the top institutions and institutes on wind. So you start from here, and then when you have, so you can, if you go to the website, you are going to be able to look at your states. You can look at your LGA down to that level. Then you can then say, okay, these places and these places have this potential, have this wind speed characteristics. Let's then measure the long term. You can then go and put the in situ devices there to be able to get the much more refined measurements with high resolution. So that's one way to analyze wind energy resource and model it, because from this platform as well, in some places you can download reports, you can download profiles, you can download all these other parameters, and then you already have something to work with. We also have advanced modeling tools, of course, which is out of the scope of this, but you can know about it. There is the popular one, which is a WASP. It's a Wind Atlas Analysis and Application Program, also developed by those that built the Global Wind Atlas. And you can, create models. You can even use it to generate your own atlas. So if we have physical measurements in a location, let's say we say there is a potential in Niger State or Plateau State or Katsina State, then this is a software we can use to create our own profile that looks like the Global Wind Atlas, but at our own measurement, it's not remotely sensed and at a more granular level, and then you can use it to get the same analysis. It produces, you can even generate the annual energy production of the site, which you can also use to gauge if it's a worthy investment when you put it into a financial model, because that will be the bottom line. SCO is just all the cost divided by annual energy production, and if it makes sense to invest in that kind of project and the tariff is going to work, then you invest. Otherwise, you move away. So when we've analyzed and looked at all this, what are the key metrics that you must also know about? You will see me talk about annual energy production. These are the other key things. I think I should mention as well that there is what we call cutting speed, which is rated for a turbine. So when you are benchmarked, that's why I say turbines should be designed for the project. Not that you go and buy a turbine and you go and put it on somewhere. So when you know your average wind speed, which is, let's say, 5.5 meter per second, that's your average wind speed, then you tell the turbine manufacturer, or you go to spec sheet and you say, I'm looking for a turbine of this rated capacity with the cutting wind speed of this range. So that cutting speed is the minimum speed at which the turbine will start producing electricity. If you go and buy cutting wind speed that is lower than that is higher than the wind speed that is obtainable in the location, that site will not operate optimally, or even in cases not operate at all. So that is one parameter that, in case you hear people talk about what's the cutting wind speed, that's what it means. Then there is a capacity factor. So every system has efficiency. There is no 100% efficient machine. I don't think we've created it. Maybe we are working towards it. So capacity factor is literally the efficiency of a turbine. Even at the rated capacity and all the parameters, there will still be some things that will be like a solar PV. I think they are approaching 21% now for efficiency of the panel. So same for your turbine, you have the capacity factor, but for wind it is quite high. You can do 40% onshore you can even do as high as 60%. Yes, so that makes it a very good. And so if you are able to get that, then that means that your power plant will really be producing. And so that's the capacity factor. And so that's one of the reasons what we want to get by doing the measurement and analysis of wind resources, which is a variable renewable resource, is to achieve and to determine the capacity factor. Of course, the wind power density as well is a measure of the wind energy that we are generating per unit area. And so wind also has that characteristics of using less land for more power, especially in places with good wind resources. So we spoke of a turbine that could generate 15 megawatts. So imagine how many panels or maybe some other kind of technology we'll have to put, or even if you want to have a hydro turbine that you will need to do significant artwork, dams, and the likes to get these kind of big numbers in cases. After you have some of these other parameters, then you calculate your annual energy production, which is the most critical part of large-scale wind farms, so that you know what you can generate, what you can sell, and that will tie into the financials and the models of the plant. You have to turbulent intensity also calculate the variability of the wind. So you want a place where the turbulent intensity, is within the range, especially from the standard deviation, so that your downtime or time you need to shut down because of high wind speed. So, and don't think that if you have a hurricane, that is good. There is also the optimal speed. Once the speed is too much, you must turn off your turbine. Otherwise, it will damage it. So it's a range. So you don't want this. It's not like maybe before someone will also say when a hurricane is happening in the US, that's when they generate most electricity. No, they will turn off all their turbines. Someone has said that, the turbine is for global cooling to counter global warming. Yes. So, but that's why we are having these education sessions on this. Then there is also wind shear, which is very critical even to airplane. Wind shear is very dangerous, and you want to find places where the wind shear is low. So that is some of the metrics we are measuring. So then, why is it important to measure wind resource? Feasibility studies, like you have said, the economic viability of a wind project is pertinent on, what outcome we can get from these parameters we just mentioned. So to also know the turbine siting and optimization, I think I've touched on these as well. You don't want to just site your turbines randomly. You want to site it in a place where the resources measurement and analysis and modeling gives you the best result. And of course, investment decision will follow these two, that, okay, this is a project, is a go, and we won't blindly, go and commit to a project or sign power purchase agreement, and then we'll come back at the end and not be able to either move the project forward, or the project will not perform to its design expectation. Yes. So that is like the roundup of my presentation. I'm open to questions and contributions. I'm sure there should be questions, and I'm ready to answer them. And if you also want to know more about the Wind Energy Council, I'm happy to speak on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Temitope, for that. Before we go for tea break, we will be moving to the question and answer session on what Temitope just took on the basics of wind energy. So this is going to be like an interactive session, right? It's not just Temitope that is going to be answering the questions. If you know the answer to some questions, we can all share with one another. So who has questions for Temitope, Lester? Or who has questions for people in the room? Okay, thank you. So this is how it's going to go. When I give you the microphone, you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then proceed to ask your questions so we know one another very well. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma. I'm Engineer Adelakun, Sunday Matthew from Ogun State. The lecturer, you have spoken very well. We really appreciate you. But in the course of your discussion, most of the time when you want to talk, we'll be talking about Katsina State. I want to congratulate people from the Katsina State. My question goes to us. We that we are from southwest of Nigeria, is there any way by which we too we can be a beneficiary of this particular project? Number two, in the course of your discussion again, I want you to make it known to us that maybe range of the megawatt that can be generated through this wind turbine. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dede, and representing EMRC. So my question is, I know we are discussing distributed energy resources as one of the objectives of the workshop, but I want to ask how, it's a very simple question, how wind can be harnessed to the point where we can, integrate it into the grid, and eventually maybe become something that might help reduce tariffs, something like that. Yeah, thanks.
So, sir, excuse me. Timtiko is going to answer these first two questions, and then we will go back to the hall, so there's no confusion in the answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The reason why I was mentioning Castina is just, I think I didn't put it in the slides, just because that's where the 10 megawatts main wind farm is. There are, just like it says, distributed energy resources. Wind even has small scale application. There are many, like we said, someone using wind to do milling or to pump water is already an application that can happen. I know a very smart engineer in Lekki years back. He used to put panels for his external cameras. He mounted it somewhere. Then he found, I think he bought it from China. He just found a way to use a very small wind, almost like a wind vane. And that was what was powering his CCTV systems. So it can work in most places. In fact, someone who spoke to me recently and said, depending on the tariff and the economics, and we've also said that you can, design to spec, which means you can look at the whole system and prioritize and say, okay, some people now are looking at some places that we have project going on in, is it Edo and Cross River. They are already doing some advanced Oando clean energy. We have potential everywhere, and even in the southwest, we've seen places in Ekiti, we've seen places in Kwara that for large scale application. Another reason why I was focusing on this is we want to connect to the grid in megawatt quantities, so that's why I just my focus. But wind is a distributed energy resource that can be. In fact, we have some hybridized system, almost containerized, that is both wind and solar. You bring it together, and they have the rated combination plus battery energy storage that will be together in a small village, powering them. And, so that's it. So it can work in most places. And so there's even Ogun water side now. So you can also do offshore application. Yes, sir. So maximum megawatt is dependent on technology, but like we have said, there are singular turbines that can produce 15 megawatts, 7 megawatts for a single turbine. So if the area is resource rich and you stack it together, I think the largest wind farm is in China. I think it's doing 6,000 megawatts, a single wind farm. And we also showed you Lake Turkana is 330 something, just a single wind farm. So there is no peg on it, and it's even more. It has high intensity per land use for energy generation where there is resources, but the resources has to be there. So, okay, for the other question that says about integration and RE, of course, at least from my basic knowledge, one of the good of renewable energy is the fact that something like in places where it's suitable, something like fuel cost is not part of your OPEX because the fuel is nature. And that means that in most cases, some of the justification for going to large-scale renewables is actually the fact that you can get cheaper tariff compared to maybe thermal that needs gas, so many other agreements. So I have numbers. Some people are already doing 4 cents per kilowatt hour for wind, and they will tell you can go lower. So, if you get that kind of course, we know how much we pay for thermal here in Nigeria, and even hydro, it's not as cheap as that. And if economy large projects come, there has potential to also reduce the tariff a bit. That'll be my answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. My name is.
Please proceed. Introduce yourself, what you do, and.
Okay. My name is Engineer Godde Chinwo. I work for Abuja Electric Distribution Company. I'm also a consultant in the energy space. I want to find out, I've been to Castina, to that 10 megawatt power plant. And that was in 2018. And prior to that, that plant was established around 2016, thereabout. The plant, when I went there, I saw it was down. They were, as at that time, they were redundant. And as I'm speaking now, we're talking about variable renewable energy. We're thinking of integrating those megawatt into the grid. But up till now, that has not been visible. My question is, what are the pitfalls? Was there any feasibility study that we need to do so that we're able to, get it right before going into, any other possible win or any other miss job to the grid? Thank you.
Thank you. The second question.
Can I go ahead? Engineer Kasim Abdullahi Burkulu is my name. I work with the Kano Electricity Distribution Company. I will not digress. I think the first three speakers have spoken about in Katsina, and I will also join them. I happen to be part of the feasibility study of the establishment of that wind farm while I was in Katsina, and I think Katsina people are around. As the last speaker said, I think it's still a mirage, that 10 megawatts. So in your presentation, you mentioned the 2 propeller and the 3 propeller. I think from the patriotic perspective, what do we do now to see this wind farm come into work? I want us to discuss now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the 2 questions really about Katsina, right? Yes. Okay. You went to Katsina in 2018. Me, I was there last week. Yes, I have photo. We'll show you the photo. I was there. You can come and check it on my phone. So, I mentioned that one of the characteristics of maintaining the nacelle is to bring the tower down and service the nacelle. So it is very unusual to go to a wind farm with multiple towers and not find 1 or 2 that is under maintenance. So the ones you saw, because I was there, the 37 turbines are all erected. A couple are down for maintenance. That's what is there. So I'm there. I have video. I was there on last Friday. So I was there. I was in Katsina myself. So that's the answer to that. So in terms of why it's not working, it's a combination of a lot of things. And I think I had a session during the launch of our council where someone said we should not take the Katsina project as a failure. It's a pilot, and it's our lesson learned. And a lot of lessons has been learned, like you said. People in Katsina, they might want to speak to it as well, but and even if there are people from Ministry of Power here. So yeah, there were a couple of things that affected the project. It's not even technical, it's socio-economic, it's security. And so there is, to segue into what is being done, there is a significant drive to resuscitate the project. And when I went to Katsina last Friday, I was impressed by what I saw, and I have hope that things will turn for the better. There is a lot of interest coming to the project. Even that's why I was there myself, that I can't just be reading. And funny enough, I also got there and I was what I used to read or see is different from what I saw on ground. So it could also be communication and messaging around the project. In fact, the project generates every day because most of the turbines are up. It generates not to the rated capacity, far from it, but it still works every day. And like you said, there are some remediation, there are some new studies and some intervention that will go into that project and will make it to come to life. And we need to bring it to life because it will be what everyone will see, and maybe someone will just throw in the art and do 1 gigawatt in Katsina or any other state like Ogun State.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3 questions, and that's all before we head for tea break. So, okay.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Engineer Bolus Abege. I'm from Yola Disco. I just want to ask a question around policy formulation and roadmap development. Yes. Do we have any wind energy policy in place? Is it in the public domain? so also the roadmap. Do we have it? That's my question. Thank you very much.
My name is Kadab Sani Shehu. I am from Kano Hydro and the Energy Development Company. My question is also, or my contribution is in line with the last speaker. If you look at the adaptation of renewable energy, honestly, solar has already penetrated, but wind still, everybody is afraid. Even if you look at the project in REA, all of the projects are solar projects. What Nigerian Wind Energy Council is doing, for example, one of the problem is data on wind speed may be fasted. We have just statistics, even though every project is data specific. You cannot compare in a state, every location is specific. What are you doing to bridge this gap, so that even the government can award project on wind energy?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Engineer Onwara Chukwemeka. I'm from Anambra State Ministry of Power. My question is a follow-up to what the last speaker just said. Do we have a comprehensive data as regards wind characteristics in Nigeria? The second one is, why is wind energy application not as widely used as we have in the solar? What is the fear of people not going into wind energy application? The last question is, what is the plan, or what is what do you do to manage the environmental impact as regards to wildlife when applying wind energy? Thank you.
Thank you very much all for the beautiful questions. I especially like the first question here. And in my presentation is basics of wind. So I stuck to that, but I can speak to some of these things. I just wanted to educate us about wind technology and wind resource assessment and measurement. But regarding what the council is doing, if you remember I don't know if you can go to my slide, I showed the thematic area of activity of the Nigerian Wind Energy Council, which includes, advocacy and communication, data, market intelligence, and insights. We also have, pilot project interest, capacity building, which is what we are doing here today, as well as partnerships and collaboration. So to speak to roadmap, we actually are in joint collaboration now with the Federal Ministry of Power, and it's supported by the European Union. In fact, the terms of reference is already out for a Nigerian wind energy master plan and roadmap. Like he said, solar penetrated organically or chaotically or whatever somehow. And in fact, today we have big projects like DARES and NEP built solely on solar. But wind is at a unique junction whereby we can set the pace and set the course. And in fact, when we started at the council, it was what we were thinking about, but a lot of other parties were also thinking about it. And if you look at the stakeholders that are speaking on the master plan and roadmap, you will see that it's trying to bring everybody to the table to set the course and direction of when you set the standards, set the milestones, and it goes on. So that's in development, and you'll hear more about it in the coming, just at the turn of the year, because I know that we put some comment and the TOR, terms of reference, has been sent out and it's been supported by the European Union. That's that on roadmap, and it's a very critical thing that we must get right this time around for wind. Regarding data, right? Yes. So one of the thematic area which we even find easy to do because we are a not-for-profit, we are not developing project, or is to be the hub of data. We have some national studies that were done 2005. They are obsolete now, and there are efforts to do new measurements. It's a marathon, not a race, because if you want to do in-depth study, you take it in phases from places with highest potential. You complete that, you move to the next phase, and gradually you have something like a wind atlas for Nigeria. And that's the final objective of the council. And we are working on it. We are also looking for support to make it happen. So that is also ongoing. And I think it also speaks partly to what the last question. So I think you mentioned something about what is the fair. From a lot of my interaction, first about it is lack of information. Because people don't know more. Imagine, like I've seen, we joke about possible things people say about wind. Excuse me. That's a critical part. And also, today we see solar doing things. We have not even building, factories being powered by solar in Nigeria. If you say that 15 years ago, they will flog you. That is impossible. Not because it was not possible, just because no one tried it. And so it needs someone needs to bail the cat. The council needs to keep speaking, show the potential opportunities. I remember the first time I went to a wind farm in Ethiopia, and let me juxtapose these two situations. I'm not mocking anything. I'm just giving a juxtapose. Then the projects in Nigeria, which were mini grids, were 75 kilowatts peak. Small projects, and they were what was powering village. And I went to a single wind farm. Each turbine was doing 1.5 megawatts, and they had 50 there. So that's 155 megawatts or so from a single wind farm. And there were two just around Addis Ababa. So it was wowing for me that they told me that once it's off peak, they would tell them to ramp down and shut down most of the turbines because the power is too much to keep the grid stable. So the problem is no one has just done it. And we need to do a major one. And that's why maybe people are beaming light on Kassina that this thing works. It's a technology that works. And once someone sees that, when people start seeing that it's working, and there is enabling environment, things like policy, like roadmap and everything, it's going to pick up. And it's the potential for offshore, which is even untapped. Then not now talk of onshore, and then look at the whole sub-region from here to Gambia or Senegal. It's for the taking. So that's why I say. Yeah, so the environmental impact is there, and it's also always part of projects. In fact, at the Wind Council, I was writing a concept on examining, impact of wind, even in Nigerian context, bats, migratory bird, and the rest. And, there are already measures. In fact, there is, I can't remember the name, there is a whole council in the United States that does wildlife impact of wind energy. And, the data, while the threat is there, it is not a main issue. There are patrol things you can do. There are measures, passive and active measures that you can do. And even during the migratory season, you can shut off, because that's why, while VRE is not totally dispatchable, but if it's in a mix, you can also see if there is a threat to, fauna and ecosystem. You can turn it off so that maybe migratory bird pass or whatnot to just mitigate. So there are already standard procedure, global principles to deal with wildlife, and you also do your own EIA for any project you want to do, even if it's a solar, any project. That's just the best practice. So that would be my question on Saturday.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Engineer Seriki from Rural Electrification Agency. You talk about, my question is sustainability. In Nigeria, we look at mostly, is this sustainable? And major thing that affects this sustainability is cost. Then the other man over there talk about the achievement of RA. We are able to get to this level we are because we carry the undergraduates along. They should be part of this so that their input, this data information we are talking about, their input will go a long way. And let them be part of the initiative of this project. It will also facilitate. When we are gone, they will make this thing to be sustainable. Because very soon, all we that we're here, we are about moving out of the system. But how do we make it sustainable if we don't carry the youth along? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the contribution. And as a council that is a not-for-profit, capacity building is a critical part of our work. And that's why we came here today to speak and educate people about wind. And I also want to say, so I think someone mentioned the RA. The RA as well are very, very interested in also diversifying solely from solar. And they've spoke with us. We are also thinking about the opportunity, especially in off-grid, like we've said, in hybrid scenario, that can combine solar and wind in small applications. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Temitope, for that. And if you want to know more about the Nigerian Wind Energy Council, of course, you know who to speak to. Thank you. So right now, we're going for the tea break, and there are 2 exits. So you go either this way or this way. But then you have to come back into the room so we avoid congestion at the point of tea break. Thank you. So we'll see you back in 30 minutes. Have fun, everyone.